So in today's class, we are particularly interested to explore the laws, regulation, or guideline, whichever is available in our country for the Islamic banks. So do you have any idea that how many Islamic banks are operating nowadays in our country? Full-fledged? Write your response in the chat box. Number. I'm just asking for the numbers. I mean full-fledged Islamic banks. No response yet. I'm waiting for your response.
Yes, sir.
How many Islamic banks are operating? I got a number. It is 8. Okay, what about other responses? Any other number? There is no right or wrong answer. I'm expecting a number, get an idea from you that you are aware that how many banks are operating under the Islamic Sharia guidance. Okay, Masood 7, 8. Okay, good. You are close to the exact number. The exact number is 10. Okay. So what can you do? You can go to the Bangladesh Bank site and under the financial system, you will look at the banks and financial institution. When you click this, you will see the list of banks and their operational category. So you see that they have mentioned that right now we have 10 Islamic Sharia-based private commercial banks, and they execute banking activities according to Islamic Sharia-based principles, profit loss sharing or PLS mode. Okay, so other than these 10 full-fledged Islamic Sharia-based private commercial banks, we know that at least close to 10, I do not have the exact number, at least close to 10 conventional private commercial banks are offering the Islamic banking services in separate window, but I do not have the exact number. I would like you to explore this number, that how many conventional private commercial banks are offering the Islamic banking services besides their conventional banking services. So I do not have the exact number, but I believe that number is not less than 10. Okay, so you see that how big the number is, or how significant the number of Islamic Sharia-based private commercial banks is. Okay, so you probably can recall from the lecture 1 that what is the contribution of this number of Islamic Sharia-based commercial banks, and what percentage of deposits they are holding, and what percentage of investment they are making in total, and what percentage of remittance they are collecting, or they are transferring out of the total remittance flow in our country. So that number is between I have mentioned 3 issues. The number is in between 25 to 30%. Okay, so at least 25 to 30% general banking activities are conducted by the Islamic Sharia-based private commercial banks. Now the question is, do they have a separate act because they are operating business under the Islamic Sharia? So do we have any separate act other than our Banking Companies Act 1991 to guide the operation or regulate the operation of the banks. Okay. So if we have the Bangladesh Bank site, what can you do? You can go to the home page, and under the home page, if you look at, they have new site. It is not their new site. This is their new site. It's loading. So the answer is we do not have a separate act for the Islamic banks. We do not have separate acts for Islamic banks. So this is a big question among the policymakers and also among the people who work or who do research on the Islamic banking operation. You see this site and you see the useful links on the bottom. And if I click this regulation and guidelines, you see we have a number of regulations applicable for the banks. But matter is that we do not have separate act for Islamic bank, but what we have for the Islamic banks, we have guideline. We have a guideline. So which guideline is applicable for Islamic bank? This one is this. You see my mouse, I am hovering over this link, guidelines for Islamic bank. Okay. So it is actually guiding the operation of Islamic banks in our country. So obviously, as you are taking the Islamic banking, Islamic finance and banking course in your MBA program, we should have a very good idea that what have been explained in the guidelines for Islamic banks and why it is essential, what is the purpose. So if you click this, you will get an interactive page where you can go to the separate section by clicking on the detail. Or if you like to have a full document, you can take the full document from here in the PDF format. So let's talk about the introduction part. We'll spend much time on the guidelines for conducting Islamic banking. So it was probably published in November 2009. So what we like to do, we like to explore each and every section possibly. And we'll spend much time, probably this class and the next class, for understanding the guidelines applicable for the Islamic banks. Okay. So first of all, let me take you to the introduction and definition of terms used in the Islamic banking. Okay. So if we open this, it will take time from here. It will be better if I take you to the PDF file directly to here. Okay. So a couple of things we like to share that it is a matter of regret that Bangladesh has already been in a phase that Islamic banks in our country have taken a strong position, but unfortunately we have not been able to introduce or formulate pass separate act for Islamic banking operations. But most of the countries where there are Islamic banking operations like Malaysia, Kuwait, these countries have a separate act for conducting Islamic banking. Okay, so that is the reason that we cannot measure that whether our Islamic banking companies are actually practicing Islamic banking, or they are somewhat doing their activities, which is kind of not exactly the Islamic banking. So as we do not have separate act, we cannot regulate them with their with our with any act, and we cannot sue any complaint based on some act that you are not doing this following the Islamic Banking Act. So you have to stop this immediately. So we cannot do this as we do not have an act. So that's the reason that sometimes you see that some people mention that Islamic banks are not doing Islamic banking, rather they are doing the conventional banking under the name Islamic banking. So they are not absolutely false in their statement. So, but you cannot verify their statement. So the one reason that why you cannot verify their claim because you do not have a separate act for Islamic banking. So it is a matter of big concern and always cited in the newspaper and always cited in other journals or other policy papers that we have failed to introduce a separate act for Islamic banking. And that's why we are guiding the Islamic banking companies with the act which is applicable or which was originally designed for conventional banks, the Banking Companies Act. Okay, so you have understood the usefulness of the separate Islamic Banking Company Act. So as we do not have that act, we have a guideline, and we can explore that what have been mentioned in the guidelines. Because if we have the opportunity to work in Islamic bank, we can understand that what we need to follow, and knowing the guidelines, knowing the regulations is must for doing a banking job. And if anyone fails to comply with the guidelines or the regulations, he or she must be accountable to the regulatory authority. Okay, so for the purpose of ensuring uniformity, in the practice of Islamic banking operations by Islamic banks, we need to have a separate act. So as we do not have a separate act, we have these guidelines available. And how these guidelines have been come into place. So you see the history of the guideline. So Bangladesh Bank constitute a focus group for this purpose, which in that focus group, there are representatives from the central bank, there are representatives from the operating Islamic banks, there are representatives from the Central Sharia Board for Islamic Banks of Bangladesh. And this focus group formulate an integrated guideline for conducting banking business of the Islamic bank or Islamic bank branches of the conventional bank. I was looking for the numbers of these conventional banks which have separate Islamic banking branch. Okay, so this guideline explored the issues of liquidity, maintenance of book account, and how the financial statements should be prepared, and other related issues. Okay, and you see that how this guideline has been prepared. This guideline has been prepared mainly based on the Banking Companies Act 1991, the act I was referring several times in our previous discussion. And you see, as the bank institutions need to operate their business as company, that's why you see that Company Act 1994 is an integral part. And you see a number of prudential regulations of Bangladesh banks are always there, and which are here. I was showing you the links for guidelines and regulations. Here it is probably no, this is not. Yeah, this one, you see the regulations and guidelines. So these are Bangladesh Bank regulations, and there are guidelines which are applicable for some, which are applicable for the scheduled banks. And there are separate guidelines for financial institutions, which are also applicable for them. And based on all of these things, this guideline for conducting Islamic banking has been prepared. Okay. Now, it is very critical. You need to understand that the guideline which you will be exploring, it is a supplementary. It is a supplementary of all of these things, the Banking Companies Act, and the Prudential Regulations of Bangladesh Bank. It is not a substitute to the existing banking laws, rules, and regulations. So you see that when you are measuring the operation or guiding or regulating the operation of Islamic Bank based on the existing banking laws, rules, and regulations, which are particularly designed for the conventional banks, it will be huge challenging. It will be huge challenging because they are, by structure, their operations are different. So that's why always there's a question that why we do not have a separate act for Islamic banks. As long as we do not have separate acts for Islamic banks, there will be a number of questions for which we do not have the answer. Okay. So let's explore some definitions which will be used in the guidelines. And some of the concepts are much familiar with us because we have explored a number of things and number of contents in the Islamic finance and Islamic banking issues. Okay. So you see the source is Sharia. So the Sharia is the main guidance of the Islamic Bank, and we will come to learn more about the Sharia in the class after next class probably. And what is Sharia? Sharia includes the rules and regulations, and their origin is primarily from Holy Quran and Sunnah. So in next class, the class after next class, we will see other than the Holy Quran and Sunnah, we have some fiqh sources. We have some ijma sources for the Sharia. And this Sharia govern all aspects of human life. Okay. And we will also see that Islamic Bank, when the Islamic Bank will be mentioned in the guideline, what does it mean? It means the banking company which follows the Islamic Sharia in all its principles and modes of operations and avoids receiving and paying of interest at all levels. This is huge. This definition is huge. To be an Islamic bank, it needs to follow the Islamic Sharia in all its principles. There is no exception. There is no room for setting a principle which will follow the conventional bank or which will follow the conventional banking company. All of their principles, all of their modes of operations, all of their services needs to obey the Islamic Sharia. And they need to avoid receiving and paying of interest at all levels. There is no exception. You see, it is very strict definition. At all levels, they need to avoid receipt and paying of interest. But you see, as long as we have our economic system, which is conventional interest-based economy, Islamic banks cannot avoid receiving and paying of interest in some points, in some places. In that case, they disclose that the amount, and what they generally do, they generally transfer the amount of interest to their CSR fund, and they spend the amount for the purposes which is guided in the Sharia. But the thing is that this definition is huge. Okay, there is no room for flexibility. There is no room for modifying the principle, or there is no room for receiving and paying interest in some cases. Okay. Now, What is the definition of depositors? These are some general things. It will be familiar to you, or it will be easier to understand, but I'll look at some issues in which I understand that clarity is essential. Okay. The depositors, we probably spend time to understand the deposit products in the lecture 2. So you see the depositors in Islamic banks, what they do? Do they have conventional account? Exactly no. They have some deposit account like current account, but it is based on the Al-Wadiya principles. So you see that Al-Wadiya principle, they are committed. I mean, the Islamic banks are committed to return the amount which has been maintained in current account as it is. There is no room for providing financial benefits to the current account holders. Okay. There is no space. And savings or long short-term deposit accounts under the Mudaraba principle. So they can take the savings or long short-term deposit account, but they need to be based on the Mudaraba principle. So I believe by this time you have understood that what is the Mudaraba principles. Okay. So it needs to be complied clearly. So if you see that there is a discrepancy, they are claiming that it is Mudaraba deposit, but you have the knowledge of Mudaraba principles. You see that Mudaraba principles are not applied fully. In that case, you will ask question that you are mentioning that it is a Mudaraba product, but I see there is a discrepancy in application of principle by you, and the idea of the Mudaraba principles I have learned from the Islamic finance and banking. Okay. Now, sometimes compensation needs to be provided by banks, and it is also applicable for Islamic banks, that Islamic banking company need to pay compensation. But what does it indicate? It generally it indicates salaries or salaries paid to the employees. But here the compensation is not salary. Rather, compensation indicates the financial penalty which will be imposed by Islamic banking company over and above the amount of installment when a client fails to repay bank's investment on due dates as per the agreement executed by him. So you see that you have provided an investment, say for example, Murabaha investment based on Murabaha principle, and you have set some installment that how the amount will be, due amount will be cleared, but you see that the borrower, the client has made default, client has not made the payment clear on due date. In that case, you will charge financial penalty. That financial penalty has been termed as compensation to the Islamic bank. Okay, it will be paid by the client, default client, and it will be taken by Islamic banking company, and it will be named as compensation. Okay, so let's move. The first thing, you are an entrepreneur. You have become very excited that you have learned the Islamic bank finance and banking very well. And what you like to do, you like to set up a full-fledged Islamic bank in our country. Okay. So what criteria you need to fill up? That is the big section, section 2. We need to go through possibly each and every point because these are the criteria the entrepreneur for Islamic bank needs to follow. Otherwise, you need to be clear that this license will not be provided to you. Okay. Do you have any idea that how many banking companies have got license from the Bangladesh banks so far as of today? I'm not asking the exact number. I'm just asking.
53, sir.
License. Okay. So write your response in chat box. I like to see that how closer you are to the exact number. Write your responses in the chat box. How many banks have got license so far from Bangladesh Bank? The responses are coming. I have got only one response, but what about others? Are you there? I'm waiting for your responses.
Sir, কাকে বলছেন?
Sorry?
কাকে ask করছেন?
Number of not the Islamic banks, number of total licensed banks, or the number of total licenses given by the Bangladesh Bank.
Sir, private or
In total number of banks.
sir 100 plus?
100 plus.
Private, I think 46.
Total number of banks. Okay, the number is 60 plus. The number is 60 plus. So from where you can confirm? You go to the Bangladesh Bank site again, and you look at the financial system, and you click the banks and financial institutions. You see the number has been updated up to 61. 61 scheduled banks have so far got the licenses. Got it? So who
Yes,
are
sir.
they? Who are they? They are these banks. And we have 5 non-scheduled banks. I'm not asking about these banks because they have their separate act for operation. Okay. They are not guided by, or they are not regulated.
এখানে যে ব্যাংকগুলোর কথা উল্লেখ করলেন ওটা কি বাইরে লাইসেন্স করা ব্যাংক কি এর থেকে বাদ পড়ছে লিস্ট থেকে?
I didn't get you.
বললাম স্যার এগুলা যে ব্যাংকের কথা বলছেন ওগুলা কি বাইরের যে ব্যাংকগুলো আছে ওগুলা যেরকম ব্যাংক পুরি
I mean, are you indicating the foreign commercial banks?
জি স্যার।
Foreign commercial banks are there within the 61.
Okay.
Okay, these are the classification of the 61. Okay. So I mentioned the 10 Islamic Sharia-based private commercial banks are here, and total private commercial banks is 43. I mean domestically owned, 33 plus 10, 43. This one is the PCB, private commercial banks. Okay. And what can you do? You can look, you can check the list from here. If the site is here, what can you do? You see the financial system and banks and financial institution. You can look at the scheduled banks link here, and you can find out the all banks here. Okay, with their website. Okay, let's return what I was asking from you, because that you see that it is not a small thing getting license, and it is a kind of dream for the bank entrepreneurs. You have all the things, you have monies, you have name, you have entrepreneurs, you have technologies, you have skills, but if you do not have the license, you cannot start a bank. Okay, so what are the criteria you have become excited to set up a Islamic bank? What criteria the entrepreneur needs to fill up, particularly for initiating a full-fledged Islamic bank. Okay, so we'll spend much time for understanding this. Let's move. Okay. The proposed bank company needs to be a public limited company, and minimum of 50% share shall be offered to the public. Minimum 50% share shall be offered to the public. Can you please mention a name of a fourth generation Islamic bank which has issued their IPO, is a big IPO in recent months? I just like to know you are aware of what is happening in the financial market. I'm asking for a name of fourth generation bank, which is also Islamic bank. They have issued their IPO, and that was a big IPO.
Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited.
Recent months.
Islamic Bank is already in stock market.
Right. I see no responses. Just try to give some random name. You will see that a random response has become correct. Waiting for your response. Name of any fourth generation Islamic banks.
Sir, Global Islamic Bank?
Not exactly, but write your response in the chat box. I like to see that you at least know the name of the banks. Note that that bank's IPO has been the largest IPO in the banking sector up to this date.
The Break Bank?
That Islamic Bank, fourth generation Islamic Bank.
Sir, কি বললেন? আমরা কি ক্যাপসে লিখবো?
Yeah, write your responses in the chat box. I just like to know. Yeah, Rizwan has selected, or Rizwan has mentioned the right Union Bank. Okay, so the answer is Union Bank. Rizwan, thank you for giving the right response. And their IPO size was around 4.28 billion. Okay, so their IPO size is 4.28 billion, and they have got the approval for raising this amount of fund through IPO. Or you see that they have probably their paid up capital is currently, I mean, before the IPO, it was around 500, more than 500 crore taka, if I'm not wrong. Let me explore it. Okay.
স্যার 428 crore টাকা।
Yeah. But I like to know what will be their, I mean, their post IPO paid up capital will become, I mean, more than 900 crore taka. Okay. Let me look at your site. Okay, this is their IPO site. 4.28 billion. And let me check that their existing paid up capital, whether they have mentioned here. I do not see, but their existing paid up capital is more than 500 crore or more than 5 billion. So what I'm saying that after the IPO, IPO has already been made, okay, and it has received 3.62 times higher offer, and their paid up capital, let me find out it. Yeah, you see, the bank started in 2013 and its paid up capital is 558.93 crore. And it is operating in the country as a full-fledged Islamic bank. You see that before IPO, this is their paid up capital site. So after the IPO, it will become more than 900 crore. Okay. And you also see that yeah, have got the approval of this 428 crore taka IPO. So it is a huge, what I have mentioned for the purpose here, that this is the largest IPO in the banking sector in our country to this date. Okay, next. So you see that it is more than 50%. I mean, if I think of their total IPO is now, I mean, their total paid up capital is more than 950 crore taka. You see that, okay, it is not more than 50%, it is less than 50% still. If they issued IPO of 428 crore taka, it is not exactly 50%, it is less than 50%. Is it true? Have you got the calculation what I have made? If I assume that their other shares will not be offered to the public, only this amount which has been issued in the IPO that will be issued in the market. In that case, they have issued 50% or they have issued less than 50%. Let me show you the calculation. They have existing let me assume it is 559. Okay, 559. And they have issued new IPO IPO 428. It is there existing now after post IPO paid up capital. Now you see that if I assume that only 428 crore taka will be available to the public market, in that case, is it more than equal to 50% or less than 50%? 428 divided by
Less than
980.
50%.
Yeah, it is less than 50%, you see. Okay. But we need to check that how much of their shares will be offloaded. Okay. So we talked about much about the 50%, and I believe you have got something. Okay, you see, All the financial transactions of the banking company shall be conducted based on the principles of Islamic Sharia. All the financial transactions. It is a huge statement. All the financial transactions. There is no exception. In the law or in the guideline, if you see that all except this thing, the financial transaction of the banking company shall be conducted, in that case, you would see some flexibility, but you see no flexibility. All the financial transactions need to be conducted based on the principles of Islamic Sharia. Okay. Remember, shall be is a stronger word in any guideline and in any regulations. When there is a wording mentioned as shall be, you need to think of that it is mandatory. Got the point? So when I ask you that you got the point or you understand it, please write yes or no so that I can understand that you are getting what we are talking about. Okay. So shall be is a mandatory thing you need to follow. Okay. Next. The ways and means of resource mobilization, expansion, and nature of business transactions have to be stated in the application form. What does it mean? It means that when you are applying for the Islamic banking company license, you have to mention that how resources will be mobilized, how you will be expanding your business, what will be the nature of your business transactions. You need to mention it in the application form. Application form for what? For getting the license for setting up a full-fledged Islamic bank. Okay. Now, the applicants, I mean the entrepreneurs here who are applying for Islamic banking license, that will indicate their expertise, their banking expertise, and other facilities they have available with them for ensuring operation of their Islamic banking business as per Islamic Sharia. So you see that for operating Islamic banking business as per Islamic Sharia, you need to have more expertise on top of the expertise required for conventional banking, because you need to be aware that your operations will not be same as the conventional banking. So as long as you know that what is conventional banking, in that case, you can identify that what is not Islamic. Okay. And you need to have all facilities available for the purpose of ensuring Islamic banking business. Now, thing is that some Islamic banks commonly mention that they do not have facilities to collect information or to make contract or to reach to this number of vendors, which is essential as per Islamic Sharia for maintaining smooth Islamic banking or for making my investment product available. In that case, you see when they are mentioning these reasons, that's what does it indicate? It indicates that they are not equipped enough with their facilities, which are required for operating Islamic banking business. Okay. And for getting a license of Islamic banking company, what you need to do, you need to have a minimum paid up capital of Taka 2 billion. And you need to maintain the capital adequacy ratio. It is a, I mean, the capital amount includes the tier 1, tier 2 relative to the risk-weighted asset, which is named as capital adequacy ratio. And it is guided by a Basel guideline. Are you aware of the Basel guideline? Basel 3, Basel 2, have you heard about it? Basel guideline, Basel framework?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That Basel framework guideline guides that what should be the capital adequacy ratio. Right now, it is probably 12% plus in our country. This requirement of paid up capital is, I mean, in our country is either 12% of your risk-weighted asset or 4 billion taka, which one is higher in our country for the conventional banks. But you see, this is 2 billion. This is 2 billion, for the Islamic Bank. So do you think that for getting a license of Islamic Bank, it is easier in terms of the requirement of minimum paid up capital? What do you think? Is it easier on the basis of minimum paid up capital requirement? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is the reason why nowadays more Islamic banks are coming, and for number of reasons Bangladesh Bank has not given the approval for new Islamic banks, and people always often apply for the Islamic banks. Okay. So this is one of the reasons that their minimum paid up capital requirement is low. Okay, next. Each shareholder, I mean the sponsor shareholder, they need to have at least 2.5 million uh, 2.5 million. It is their minimum, and maximum they can hold the sponsor shareholder 10% of the proposed bank's total share capital. Okay. So let me ask you a question that the bank is Union Bank, of which the current paid up capital is 987 crore taka. What will be the maximum capital and a sponsor shareholder can hold? The current paid up capital of Union Bank is 987 crore taka. Now my question is, what amount of capital a sponsor shareholder can hold maximum for the Union Bank, of the Union Bank? Have you got my question? The maximum amount of capital the sponsor shareholder can take or can hold.
96 crore.
Yeah, good. That amount is 10% of this, 10% of 987 crore. Okay. Okay. This ceiling, when it is maximum, the wording is ceiling. Okay. When it is minimum, the 2.5 million, it is the minimum. Okay. This is the ceiling or this is floor. This minimum 2.5 million.
Floor, sir.
This one is floor, and the 10% what you mentioned is the ceiling. Okay,
Ceiling,
it's applicable to an individual sponsor. It can be applicable if the sponsor is a company or family member, or either severally or jointly or both. Okay, family includes this person. Okay, family includes this person. Okay, so each of the family member needs to hold this amount of capital. Okay, so this is a huge requirement. I mean, it is for the sake of commitment of the sponsor. If you do not have your own capital at a minimum amount, it indicates that you have lack of commitment to the operation or to the existence of the bank. Or let me ask you a question, that what is the purpose of ceiling in that case? That why the regulator is setting a ceiling of the shareholding.
So that any shareholder or directors cannot manipulate or hold controls over the banks.
Okay, reduce the dominance of control, right? Reduce the dominance of a particular individual sponsor. Okay, now you see the sponsor's share shall not be transferred before expiry of 3 years from the commencement of the business without permission from Bangladesh Bank. There are two issues. One thing is that from the commencement of the business, you have to wait at least for 3 years if you are a sponsor. Okay. Then you have to take permission from Bangladesh Bank for transferring the sponsor share. Okay. So often you see in the DSE, the news is published that this sponsor is likely to purchase this amount of shares, or this sponsor of this companies has expressed intention to sell off this amount of share. Okay, these things happen for this reason. But you see that if Union Bank, if I'm not wrong, it started its business in 2013. It started its business in 2013. In which year the sponsor can transfer their share? I mean, up to which year they had to wait?
3 years, sir.
3 years. I mean, they can transfer their share in which year?
2030, 2033.
Remember, they started their business in 2013. They started their business in
2070, sir.
2013. Okay.
2070.
Okay. So you see that the bank started in 2013. Got it? So we have to look at what is the number. I mean, what is the month of the 2013 and how long they have to wait. Okay. And you see, they are the sponsor directors. They are the sponsor directors of the bank. This business group is their sponsor group. Okay, let's return. Okay, the ceiling of 10% may be relaxed in case of a bank set up as a joint venture with a foreign financial institution or banking company. So if you set a joint venture, I mean the Islamic Bank as a joint venture, and you have joint venture with foreign financial institution or foreign banking company, in that case, the requirement of maximum ceiling of 10% can be relaxed. Okay. Now, applications shall stand disqualified if any of the sponsor or directors, their spouse or firms have been involved in these activities. So these are related to making default. These are related to failing to pay tax identification number or tax return, these things. Okay, let me highlight some points for you. Okay. If any director or any sponsor participate in any criminal offense inside or outside Bangladesh, okay, and it is not sufficient that he has participated or she has participated. It is sufficient only if he has been convicted. Got the thing? So you see, often you see the reports in newspaper that some directors have participated in some criminal offense, but you see they have not been convicted. That's why you do not see that their position of director get ceased. Okay, but you see that when you are applying for the license, the application shall stand disqualified, the application, whole application, if any of the sponsor or directors is convicted. Okay, next. If any of the director has been involved in any illegal activities, particularly illegal banking business. Have you seen the news in the previous day that National Bank has asked apology from the central bank for violating the ceiling for the amount set in the credit card? Have you seen this news? That National Bank has asked for apology from the central bank for allowing their credit card holders to make a transaction exceeding the maximum limit. Anyone, yes or no? At least respond yes or no so that I can understand
sir.
that. No. Okay. So look for it. It is a kind of when you are violating a regulation, you are doing something illegal thing. Okay, you are violating the regulation. So this is just I'm giving you some set of examples which can be applicable in case hearing case. Okay, and if any director has failed to settle any liability or meet obligations to bank or other financial institution. Okay, often you see that director or a sponsor take big loan from other banks or financial institution. If it has been found that they are a defaulter, in that case, application will become disqualified. Next thing, they fail to pay tax duties properly. Okay, and you see that reputation is a huge thing for getting license. If I'm a person, I have an adverse reputation regarding my integrity and performance. In that case, I will not be qualified for getting my application approved. But it must be in the opinion of sanctioning authority. It is in the opinion of the sanctioning authority. Okay, next. The chief executive officer needs to be employed at the very beginning. And what is the guideline? The guideline is that when you are employing a chief executive officer of your Islamic bank, he needs to have be a professional who is a banking professional, and he needs to have at least 3 years of Islamic banking experience. He needs to have at least 3 years of Islamic banking experience. And having complied with all the terms and conditions of the fit and proper test issued by Bangladesh Bank. So there is a checklist which has been named as fit and proper test for employing CEO, and it has been issued by Bangladesh Bank. And against CEO, there should have no adverse information regarding the integrity and performance. And obviously, the appointment of the chief executive officer always needs to be approved by the central bank. So often you see central bank denies approval of some CEOs for some reasons. So you see the application of this guidance. Now, as it is a guideline, which has mentioned that CEO should have at least 3 years of Islamic banking experience. I often see this has been violated, this has not been maintained most often. So what happens? I see some people have just retired from the conventional banks, government-owned commercial banks, government-owned scheduled banks. After retirement, they joined to Islamic Bank, and they have no single day experience for Islamic banking. Okay. So what do you think? But no, I see no actions from the Bangladesh Bank. Okay, what they do, they approve the appointment. But you see that when they're not following these guidelines, the requirement of at least 3 years of Islamic banking experience. He just has got retired from the conventional bank and he has no single day experience of Islamic banking. So how you are appointing him as a chief executive in Islamic Bank? Okay, so if you employ, if you approve, in that case, this guideline is worthless. What do you think? This guideline has any value to you? If you do not follow it, if you do not comply with it?
No, sir.
Okay. So I have seen that these are happening. These are happening. You can check. What I have mentioned. You can also verify. Okay. Even in case of the bank on which we are discussing on, the Union Bank. Okay. So you'll see the Union Bank also failed to comply with this point of guideline, what you are right now discussing. Okay. Okay, next. The application shall submit the following documents along with the application. I mean the applicant, the sponsors will submit following attachment. What are these attachment? Feasibility report with the organizational structure for formation of banking company and proposed name of the chief executive officer. So feasibility report, you try to convince the regulator that you have conducted a feasibility, that you will be doing business and that will be sustainable, that will be durable, and it is not likely that you will be run out of business within several years. Okay, you have planned well, so you have to submit a feasibility report. And you also have to submit a short-term and long-term business plan. And you also need to mention your plan for internal control management. I do not know whether you are aware of this thing. This is a huge thing, internal control. Okay, so how you set up the governance in the institution, and how you set the reporting issues, and who will be responsible to whom, who is taking the authority of which task. All these things are part of the internal control. And the risk management guideline for the banking companies, this is a significant thing, how you set your guideline for managing the risk and the details of the approval authority. And you need to submit attachment of this working system and procedures for business activities, and list of other companies and their bankers in which the sponsor director and their family as defined are interested as directors, chief executive, partner, proprietor, or major shareholder holding 5% or more shares. What does it mean? It needs, it requires that all the sponsors will show that what is their affiliation with other, do they have any affiliation with other banks or other business, these things, and then it to affiliation will be considered if they have at least 5% or more shares in that business. And it is not only for the sponsor, it is also a requirement for the chief executive. This one, you see, this is also a requirement of chief executive. Okay. Now, The bank which may be permitted to be established shall be subject to the prevalent banking and other laws, rules, regulations, and directives issued by the Bangladesh Bank from time to time. We have mentioned it about in the introduction section. The sponsor shall give an undertaking to the effect that the bank will comply with all instructions to be issued by Bangladesh Bank and government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh Bangladesh from time to time. Okay. And all other terms and conditions which will be issued by Bangladesh Bank will be applicable for getting the license of Islamic Bank. Okay. Now, this is the second part. This criteria will be applicable only for the conventional banks who have expressed intention to obtain license for opening Islamic banking branch. So if you look for some news in recent years, you will see a number of conventional banks, a number of conventional banks have submitted application for getting a license for operating Islamic bank from they have submitted license to Bangladesh Bank, but Bangladesh Bank has not given the license to them because of number of reasons. But the issue is alarming that why the conventional banks have become more interested to obtain the license for operating Islamic banking branch. Why they are getting more interested? Okay, you have to look for the reasons. The reasons are available in the web and in the discussion. You have to look for it. What are the reasons? That what are the advantages of setting Islamic banking branches, and why the conventional banks are getting more interested to transform their business to from the conventional banks to Islamic banks, and why they are more interested to getting the license for introducing or taking the Islamic banking branches. Okay, now let me highlight some issues for these banks, these conventional banks, if they want to obtain license for Islamic banking branches. Okay, first thing first, they need to show that they have the adequate financial strength, they have adequate capital base, and they have adequate capital structure, a good capital structure. They have a record of earning capabilities. They have a good liquidity position. They have track record of banks adherence to the prudential regulations, credit discipline, quality of customer services, and the convenience and the needs of the population of the area to be served by the proposed branch. So they need to prove these things. Okay. So for whom these things are applicable? For a conventional bank who wants to get license for opening Islamic banking branch. Okay. Now, the bank must have a CAMEL rating of 1/2 in the last on-site inspection of Bangladesh Bank, and there should not be major adverse inspection findings against the bank. Okay. So these are the some objective criteria, and there is no issue of subjectivity. And what are the working papers you need to submit along with your application? You have to specify the number of branches to operate in line with Islamic Sharia and the name of the proposed towns and district in which areas you are wanting to set up the Islamic banking branch. And again, you see that here we have mentioned that you have to prove that that area has demand for getting the service of you. Needs of the population of the area to be served. You have to prove that the area has a need for Islamic banking branch. That's why you are interested to set up. Okay. Next thing I like to highlight that they have to, I mean the conventional bank, they have to, who want to get the license for Islamic bank, they have to express commitment that they keep the fund and accounts of Islamic banking branches completely separate from those of the conventional ones. What do you think? It is very easier task. The funds and accounts
No,
of
sir.
Islamic banking branches will be completely separate from those of the conventional ones. Okay. So let me think of an individual case. Okay. An individual has taken two loans. One is from conventional bank and another one is from Islamic bank. And he has taken the cash. Is it possible to keep the funds separated? For the individual? Is it easier? It is particularly difficult. I do not know that how they actually maintain this. I believe that it is strongly difficult. Okay. And they need to express the methods that how they will segregate the funds of the Islamic branches from the funds of commercial branches of the bank. And you see, recently, the top conventional banks have set up the Islamic banking branches. And they are highlighting that they have transformed this conventional banking branch to Islamic banking branch. And these are happening, and they need to show that what are the methods they will be applying. And I'm particularly interested to see an application submitted by a conventional bank where they have mentioned that these are the methods I will be following for segregating the funds I'm getting from the conventional branch and I'm getting from the Islamic branch. And these are the ways that I'm separating this out. Okay. Now, formation of an Islamic banking divisions. So you see this, these are the required working paper. Okay. These are the eligibility criteria. Now, next thing is when you are forming an Islamic banking division, what you need to do. This is particularly applicable for the corporate head office. That in your corporate head office, which was particularly designed for the conventional operation. Now, what you need to do, you need to set up a separate division, a separate floor, separate space, separate department for the purpose of Islamic banking operation. Now, what you need to do, you need to set up the Islamic banking division, which is in the head office of the local bank, and in the country office in case of foreign bank. So you see, if the bank is, say, for example, HSBC or Standard Chartered, they are the foreign banks. They have set up their Islamic banking division, either Amana or Sadiq. And what they need to do in their country office in Bangladesh, they need to set up a separate division. Okay. And for the local banks, say if it is a prime bank or if it is a city bank, who are the conventional bank, if they like to provide the Islamic banking, they need to set up a separate division, department in their corporate head office in Dhaka for the purpose of monitoring or for the purpose of operating the Islamic banking. Okay, that is the thing which has been explained here. And organizational structure of the division, of which division? This division, Islamic banking division. And what will be the qualifications and Islamic banking experience of the top executives who will be heading this division? Then this experience qualifications of the top executives need to be submitted to the concerned division of Bangladesh Bank. Okay. And what will be the responsibilities and duties of this division needs to be clearly explained. Okay. And when you are mentioning the responsibilities and duties, you need to classify the responsibilities and duties under these broad headings, that how the Islamic banking's rules and regulations and their implementations will be framed out, and how you will maintain the coordination with the Sharia Supervisory Committee. We'll talk about it in more detail later. Sharia Supervisory Committee, which is an integral part of any Islamic bank, and how the Islamic Banking Division executives will make coordination with this committee, and how they will ensure investment of funds received for Islamic banking business under modes approved by Islamic Sharia. They need to mention these things, and what will be their responsibilities, I mean the top executives, for this purpose. Okay. Now, regarding the control and segregation of the Islamic banking fund, I mean the funds which have mobilized from the Islamic banking branch, and the funds which will be used for investment for under the Islamic banking division. So separation of funds of Islamic banking branches and control and pursuance of appropriate procedures are to be ensured for safeguarding the interest of the depositors. Okay, separation of funds. So I was saying that it is a difficult task. Okay, and they have to set an operational manual for running Islamic banking business to be prepared and got duly approved by the BOD of the respective banks. Okay, and they need to set up a manual, and they also have to ensure that they have the documents, forms, books, deposit receipts, checkbooks, etc. of Islamic banking branches, which are particularly designed in a way that are which look as distinct from those which are used in the conventional banking branches. Say, for example, you are a Citibank, you are deposited in a Citibank. So if you have a deposit account in Citibank conventional branch, you have a deposit account in Citibank Islamic banking branch, you need to check out that the checkbooks which have been provided in the conventional banking branch and in the Islamic banking branch, they need to be distinct. They need to be distinctive. Okay, they need to be completely distinctive. Understand, it is not the choice of Citibank that they have made it distinctive. Rather, it has been guided by the Bangladesh Bank to make it distinctive so that people can understand which check is for the Islamic banking services, and which check is for the conventional banking. Now, how you will maintain your accounts and financial statements, they need to be expressed to the application. In the application, you see, this is a huge requirement. For the purpose, you have to separate ledger books, you have to separate software, you have to maintain for the purpose of keeping records of deposit investors, investment profit and loss accounts, etc. Just like to highlight that there is a software always used in the bank, I mean the conventional bank, for the general banking operation, which is core banking solution. So yeah, it is huge expensive. Okay, you see, for setting up an Islamic bank, a banking division, you need to have a separate software. You need to have a separate software which is particularly designed for the Islamic bank, Islamic banking business. Okay, and you need to have a separate trial balance for the daily transactions of Islamic banking branches is to be prepared and maintained. Okay, and also you have to prepare and submit. There is also daily, weekly report, but they have mentioned here quarterly, half yearly, and yearly financial statements to the Bangladesh Bank. Okay, so other than this quarterly, half yearly, and annual financial statements, always there is a weekly submission, not financial statement, weekly submission of information, the monthly submission to the Bangladesh Bank, and it is to be distinctive for the purpose of the Islamic banking branches. Okay, so These are the things we have been highlighted in today's class. One section was particularly dedicated for if you are a fresh, you want to set up a fresh, full-fledged Islamic bank. Another one is you are a conventional bank, what you need to do if you want to get license for opening Islamic banking branches separately. Okay, so these are about all the discussions we have made are in today's class. Okay, this is all about in today's class.